I'm a 21-year-old single and independent female, living away from my family. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is considered to be a red flag back home. Well, now let's change the narrative together. I'm a 21-year-old woman paving a path where a woman pursuing education abroad is not considered to be a red flag. My name is Nafisa. I'm a sophomore at Georgetown University, Qatar, majoring in international politics. And these are the glimpses of my educational journey. And beyond that, the broadless story of countless women like me defying conventions normalized in our society. From a young age, I've known and chased education, and I know for a fact it was the impact of my mother, whom I've always seen being delved amongst the books. I remember, exactly 4 years ago, having a conversation with my parents about what I wished to pursue in the future. It was the time when I was choosing the subjects for the last 2 years of my high school. Even then, I remember having a rough list of universities abroad to apply to, and becoming a Georgetown Hoya was definitely one of them. Exactly 3 years ago, I remember sitting on a summer day in my bedroom, researching and researching and researching until I made a realistically long list of universities abroad to apply to. Exactly 2 years ago, I remember riding through the most nerve-wracking roller coaster of my life. Imagine being a senior, graduating in 4 months, and not knowing where you would end up for the next 4 years of your life. I still associate every notification buzz with me sprinting to my phone to check if that notification comes from an update on any of my 12 university applications that I've applied to. Because one of those notifications determined the next 4 years of my life. But I also remember 2 years ago standing on a stage giving my first TED Talk on encouraging youth and women in particular to not let the social norms dismantle their dreams and aspirations. I remember standing exactly 2 years ago on a stage questioning my audience. What if we were not limited by social norms? Well, exactly 1 year ago, I proved to myself that indeed, it's possible to be not limited by social norms. I almost became an outlier amongst women in my home who chose to take a different path after graduating from high school, continuing on pursuing education. I would now like to ask one question from all the admission officers. How many times have you read the personal statements of young women wishing to be accepted into your university because they simply have to get educated? Stories of young women stating that education is almost the only way for their voices and their roles to be empowered in the society that they live in. Stories of young women praying to be accepted because through education, they can reach what they truly aspire to be. Of course, you may respond with, well, that's a lot of trauma dumping on us on an annual basis, and by the way, I apologize for being one of them, but if you respond yes, we've read those stories infinite times, then I believe this just emphasizes the faith young women have in power of education. As if this is the only escape solution for our roles to be empowered in the society that we live in. As someone who comes from generally conservative country, I've been privileged to grow up in a quite open family. I'm more than grateful for my parents who have supported my passion and my education and prioritized it beyond anything else. Especially for my father, who has dedicated his endless weekends and his time beyond his work to support me while I competed on a basketball court, while I took part in running marathons abroad, while I debated in political conferences. The activities with such a small ratio of female participants in it. What about my mother? What was her role this whole time? Well, once I came across by the following quote by Ralph Emerson. He says, "Men are what their mothers made them." Now, if we generalize the term men and imply that we all are what our mothers made us to become, then I would absolutely not and agree that yes, my mother's role to make me who I am today has been more than incremental. From day one, I've seen that woman reading, conducting various researches, always asking for feedback, always incorporating that feedback to grow professionally, to grow personally, and beyond that, gifting me with morals and values that shaped me who I am today. Indeed, mothers do play an incremental role, and they serve as a big support. To my mother, who's been my loudest cheerleader from day one, and to my father, who's been supporting my every crazy dream, I'm forever grateful for everything you've gifted me to move forward. Now, speaking of support, we as women have faced, and we still face, a lot of patriarchal limitations and barriers. We encounter a lot of misogynistic attitudes. However, I want to emphasize today in my speech the importance of having women themselves supporting other women, because that is an incremental step to take towards advancing ourselves 2 steps of where we're already at. You cannot imagine how important it is when a woman herself supports other women and lets them to grow and succeed. However, what I've seen happening is the complete opposite. It is so unfortunate because yes, at the end, we do understand and we do need to realize that it's the root of patriarchy that's causing this issue. However, should this really excuse such misogynistic attitudes to be practiced by women against other women and against themselves? Never. It is so unfortunate to see this attitude repeating itself in institutions, in workforces, and even amongst families. You cannot imagine but the greatest pressures to conform to traditional norms and traditional expectations of womanhood have come from women themselves. It always begins with, how old are you, Nafisa? How many more years for you to finish your studies, Nafisa? Finish my studies? What if I never want to finish my studies? What if my ultimate goal is to pursue the knowledge until the end? Well, I've got one of the recent ones for you, okay? Hear me out on these. Well, when are you gonna get married, Nafisa? Nafisa, you're getting old. Oh God, I completely lost count of number of times I personally heard my aunts asking me these questions. How many times did you hear your female relative ask that of you? It is so unfortunate to see that it's always the girl's female relative pushing and urging her into the marriage. Should that really be the ultimate goal of a woman? Does her status solely depend on her marriage? I am someone who believes that marriage is such a beautiful thing, but not when you're forced into it at the wrong time. I believe that marriage is such an enriching gift and journey, but not when it becomes the full stop for your passion, the full stop for your education, and the full stop for your dreams. Therefore, we have to call out on these questions. And a lot of people consider these questions as of low importance, low harm, but are they really harmless? No. And this is the time that we have to realize these attitudes. And we have to prevent other women from facing them. And of course, you may say, well, it's really hard, especially when it comes from your relatives whom you value so much. Well, then let me remind you the following. Once Meghan Markle has said, women do not need to find a voice because they already have a voice. They just need to feel empowered to use it, and others have to be encouraged to listen. Therefore, let's create a future where women stand shoulder to shoulder as leaders, educators, and advocates for one another. Thank you.